Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the diagnostic shit show? What happened to the 1800? Well, per your request, we're gonna have a play-by-play tear down of the engine first, so get your popcorn and a beverage. I've been working hard. Look at all this oil. I had to move the muffler over from the 1800. Look at how this thing is just full. It's just wet with oil. It was just soaked. The other, I think I blew a piston. I think something happened to the piston. I think it broke. I don't know how else the oil would get in there. And it's coming out the muffler. I just decided to put the single port back in. Sounds nice and quiet and smooth, doesn't it? And I just need to calm down and get over the rest of this thing. I did make an effort to clean things, put things away. Got a long ways to go on that, but I think I'm just going to do a lap around the lake and relax a little bit. It's about 5 in the afternoon. I almost gave up and didn't do anything today. But I think I'll feel better once the wheels are rolling again. Went with the sure thing. Well, guys, I have made some improvement, as you can see, and I've started the tear down, and I just took this carburetor off, and I think I see some evidence right there inside that intake port on number 3, wouldn't you say? Yes, sir. I'd say part of a valve guide. Right there. Man, that'd be a sweet deal if it was just a valve guide. But I got a feeling it's going to be more severe than that. Because if that valve guide, that means the valve got hit. And I think that's just the start. It does feel a little bit roomier in here. Man, trying to just figure out where to put all of this stuff. I found a lot of things I forgot that I had, and there's probably some things I found that I'll never see again. Well, it could have been a lot worse. Beat up the piston a little bit. Some of that valve guide must have got through. That's not real pretty, but it's not the end of the world. Looks like the heads were sealing good. I don't see any marks where the valve was hitting the piston, and you would think that, all things being similar, that this one could have been messed up too. Valve guide in solution form. You know, I think something was going on here before this. Remember early on, a different video, a couple videos back, I was looking at this magnet that I had in the head, and the funny thing about it is that stuff came right off of the magnet. Man, these are tough magnets. I'll tell you that. And it didn't stick to the magnet. It came off on my finger. But I don't know how that would have got past the rings. I'll just have to dig a little deeper. Keep digging! Sorry about the zoom. Probably screwed that all up. This, but there was plenty of headspace there. I don't think the valve hit the piston. I think a piece of the guide got in there, and I think high RPM probably. A little blow by in the case, a little pressure, blowing some oil through the valve guide, but you know, I only noticed the smoke behind me when I left that stoplight and I lost power. Can see that crosshatch from those 88s. But it sure seems wet. I don't know what's going on with that, but you can definitely see the headspace there. There's plenty of headspace. So yeah, it wasn't like the I think these heads just might be old enough, and then having that longer, adding a ½ inch. Well, it wouldn't have been a ½ inch. It would have only been 100 thousandths more. Doesn't look like the valve guides were getting hammered. 55 cc's. Pull those springs off and have a closer look. Yeah, well, I guess, you know, I'm kind of thinking I might want to take that FK7 cam out of there. I want more low end. I want to get that duration below 280 degrees. And I've got a CB Performance Eagle 2280, which is their cheater cam. And for the kind of driving that I do around town, in town, I think that might just give me a little torque, more torque where I'm spending most of my time down at the low end. It's kind of fun to rev them up, but it's not something. Piston skirt looks okay. Nice and smooth that way. Rod seems tight. Little silicone there. I don't know. I've got Total Seal piston rings here. The rings are free. Looks like I had them in properly. You see the second ring is it's more than one ring, and I have the original rings that came with those 88s. I don't know. Slap her back together with some different rings. Trying to get an idea. I'm thinking I might have used like a 90 thousandths spacer. This would have been a 85.5. You know, I could even, just talking, thinking out loud here, I could put this back to a 1600. I don't have any really good heads handy for that, but just see what that is. Yeah. 85, 86 thousandths there. Well, now the fun begins. Mystery solved, though. And I used the snap ring. I didn't use the little wire ones. You can see I used the snap rings. Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't have any feeling. I didn't sleep real well last night. I kept thinking I should have tore it apart. I almost got up and came out because I just couldn't get back to sleep. But now I know what my options are, so I have the pistons and cylinders that came on this engine. We could take it apart. Ah, man. I don't know. I was even thinking I have 90.5 pistons, and this is a stock block, but I have these heads, and both of these sets of heads are cut for 90.5, and they're good to go. And if, you know, debating whether or not to use the stock springs or the heavy duty springs, 4,500 would be the limit, but if I put the cheater cam in there, I don't know. That high RPM is, you know, it's fun to do, but the other thing is, you know, running a stock transmission and oversized tires, it's like having the freeway flyer. And most of the time, I'm, you know, at 2,000 RPM running around town. And this cam does not start coming on until 2,500. And it certainly didn't seem to like that much lift. And whether I reuse these heads or I can possibly take care of that valve guide myself. What you do is here's new valve guides. If I can get the old one out correctly. What you do, see how that drill is stepped? So basically, well, basically what you're doing, that first part is a guide. I'll set it up in my drill press, and what you do, it's paper thin. I've done it before. I've done a few heads. You drill down, and that weakens the guide. And then you take you don't drill all the way through though. This is a silicone bronze guide, but I didn't know they'd shatter like that. And then you take your, you can take a different, find a, like an old valve or something, and it'll beat out real easy once you've drilled it out, once you've drilled the core out. Then you take your head and you heat it up in the oven, say 350 for considerable time, you know, leave it in there for a half hour or something, get good and hot. And what I usually do is leave these in the refrigerator overnight, and then I'll heat up the oven in the morning, and then you just take this driver and you set it over the hole and you pound it in. Now, if you tear up the hole, these heads are cut for double springs. I don't want these valves going all over the place. These are just stock heads here. These would work good. They've got the they're better than bone stock. They've got the guides trimmed on them, and they're not bad. I'm trying to think. These were on my 2-liter, and they worked pretty good. Like I said, I was breaking these things like that. This one was cracked, and I kept breaking these things off. And on the driver's side, and no, this one was on the passenger side, because it was on this side of the garage. I remember that. And I went through, like, God, I want to think 4 or 6 of these things. They just kept breaking, and I had the heavy duty single springs on them, and I must have moved those over to the heads that are on the car now. And those are the stock heads that I got from CarCraft, and I had to do a little cleanup work on them because some of the holes didn't go through. But they've been good heads, and I've got quite a few thousand miles on them. So I'm just thinking out loud, kind of babbling here. But the other opportunity here, if I can scrape up some 1600 dual port heads, I think I have a different crankshaft. We have an oil pressure problem here. See, this is a line board case. I put 2 different pumps on it. I started having oil pressure problems on it before. I went with a bigger pump. I went to a smaller pump. I changed the relief valve. So I'm not so sure that, you know, that's why I want to stay away from the higher RPM. I bought a brand new oil cooler for it. These 88s, no problem with the 88. So I know some of you guys were following my path. And this is a great running engine. But I guess when I went to that 1/2-inch lift from it was at 425 and 390, and then I went up to 500. So, you know, what's 100 thousandths lift look like? You know, I opened the valve that much more and created all this catastrophe. I don't think it was the lift. I think it was the RPM. I got into it pretty tight there, and I probably should have had double springs. And I'm going to try to save these heads, and I'll video that as I'm doing that routine with the drill press, and I will, we'll see. We'll start with that 1 cylinder. Once we get the springs off, we can see if the valve guides are worn. If the valve guides were worn, and that could be, that could very well be the whole thing in a nutshell right there, guys. This is, these heads are 20 years old, and they're never really been worked on. Probably the valve guides got loose, and then kicking up with that high RPM, and I didn't have my vented valve covers on. That's probably what's going on now that I think about it. That's definitely a possibility. I have worn valve guides. Like I said, they were on my 2110 for till I got those other heads. And actually with a cheater cam, you know, I know everybody talks about bigger valves and porting and polishing and stuff like that, but if you're looking for torque, sometimes a smaller valve head. I mean, think of commercial engines. You know, Chevrolet put their 327s and 350s in every kind of vehicle out there. They put them in garbage trucks, school buses. They put them in 2-barrel carbs, you know, and then it was guys were always after the, you know, give me the Corvette heads because they've got the 202 valves. That was the big thing back in the 60s. And you put a cam in and you put the bigger heads with the bigger valves, it gives you the potential to go the higher RPM and make more horsepower. More fuel, more RPM, the whole, it's a vicious circle. But, you know, it, from a practicality standpoint, you know, I spent a lot of money. This is a good 74 millimeter crank. I don't know. I could make it into a 1904, like I said. I could, but I don't know if I want to spend the money on this case, and I don't know if I want to make it into a 1904 with this oil pressure problem. The reason this thing was sitting in the back of the garage for a couple of years is I had made up my mind. We still have a problem with the one's got an insert, the oil pump holes. This might be a fun one just to put back together as a 1600. And go back to HeartBreak Hill with a good cam. Make it a 1600 with that cheater cam. Now that would be a 1600 dual port with the cheater cam, and get the compression up there. I'm going to calculate this out now that I know what the... One of you guys probably watched me make this video. What did we end up for compression? I don't know. Lots to think about here. So anyhow, I know I'm boring you to tears. I'm just sort of running thoughts through my mind. If, you know, you want to entertain me with some suggestions that what you would do if it was yours, that's fine. Leave them in the comment section down below. I just don't, you know, I'll do what I want to do and what I can afford to do. But it's, you know, for the sake of conversation, I got these total seal piston rings, and they're probably fine. I'll clean up this piston on the wire wheel over there and make sure I didn't totally trash that. Matter of fact, maybe I'll do that right now. I'm gonna just pull that clip out and see if that valve guide or the wrist pin comes out. I can move it with my finger, so that's a good possibility. Ta-da! Transmission tool. That ring is even... I don't think I heard anything. Displace some metal. I'm gonna stick it on the buffer. Cleaned up pretty good. Just took the wire brush to it. First look, you can see the 87.95 and the arrow that you point back towards the flywheel. This is just displaced metal. I would weigh it, but I don't think there's, you know, just the way that ring moves in that area, it didn't do any damage. Yeah, that looks ugly, but that's going to fill up with carbon. And what I could do is, if that stock 69 crank is good, and the stock connecting rods are good, I could put these pistons and cylinders on there, make it a 1679. I'd still have to use a pair of those heads over there on the bench. I'd have to weigh everything. It wouldn't be, you know, I had it professionally balanced within a half a gram, but yeah, that thing's, even these, see how thin those total seal piston rings are? You have to be real careful with those. I probably wouldn't even hone the cylinders. I think it was all in the valve guide. And I've got the, I could hone them and put this stock second ring in. The cylinder just looks too good. Some carbon and stuff there, but it's still got its original hone marks in it. Of course, it's only probably got, I don't know, 5,000 miles on it, just guessing. Totally guessing. And you know, whether you approve of it or not, I've taken just some wet dry sandpaper and just clean that carbon up. You know, just get in there with your fingers and some, you probably want to get something like, gosh, I had a piece of it laying over here. I don't know what the coarseness of it. You don't want to use like 80 grit. You want to get something fine, but you don't want to get something that's going to plug up. Get some solvent. That's why I like wet dry sandpaper. That'll come right out of there. Do not want to drop these things, or it's over. Used that red silicone, and that's seemed to work out pretty good. Put a light coating of paint on them. Yeah, there's nothing to this, man. Nothing to it. I'm doing this in sequence, so I thought I'd see what was going on with that valve, right? There's no valve guide. There's no valve guide. I've been hearing this clack, and that's what happened. I sucked the valve guide. There's supposed to be a, where's one of those valve guides I was just showing you? I don't think I can, I think this head's trash. Well, let's get the valve out of there first. One-handed, let's do this as difficult as possible. There's your valve guide. Oh, this one doesn't want to come out because it's been beat up at the rings. I'm gonna have to file that. Ugh. Darn it. I know they make oversized guides, but this is asking a lot. Yeah, look at that. Well, see, it looked to me like it was off center. Oh, that might. I don't know if I trust it. The top of the valve guide must have broke off. What? They don't even... That's supposed to be a shoulder. It's not much of a shoulder, but... Where's that part? maybe that's down inside the crankcase. Yeah, there's some other pieces missing. That definitely looks like it's the top. Okay, so redheaded stepchild number 3. Let's I got a drill right here. Let's see if the valve's bent. Looks like a stainless steel valve. What is going on? Why would it do that? Heat. That's the only thing I could think of. Good old number 3 heat. And maybe I had some... that'll definitely give you some blow-by, but what about those other cylinders? See, it's been beat. It's that high RPM crap. That's what it is. It's amazing it didn't drop the valve. It's a good thing I shut it off as quick as I did. Yeah, I've only got one piece of that valve guide. I gotta find the rest of it. Okay, what are some scenarios here? High RPM. Not that high RPM. I maybe took it a little over 5. So... well, we're definitely going to have to crack that case. I'm definitely going to pull that cam. I was looking at, just looking online here. And they've got that, maybe it's bent up here too. A 1904. See, that way I'd have to get the case though. I'll keep it an 1800. So definitely, yeah, I'm going to take off the 40. I'll put those other heads on. And I'll put that cheater cam in. We'll see if there's any other damage. I bet those bearings are like new. It's not going to solve our... nothing we're going to do. There we go. Nothing is going to solve that. Sorry, I can't talk and work at the same time. The oil pressure problem with the case. So, it's just not worth spending money on it, but I kind of want to salvage what's in there and maybe do another project later. Like we said, I got a lot of options now. I have a ton of options. I haven't decided for sure which way I want to go. One thing's for sure, something's going on with this block. It was the engine that came in the Baja. It had oil pressure issues then, had a big milling pump on it, and I've had 2 other pumps on it since. changed the relief valve, worked on that. So have to decide where I'm going to go from here. I was only running 7.4 to 1 compression. I had 100 thousandths headspace here at the top. Here's the cleaned up piston. It's definitely reusable. I just cleaned it with the wire brush over here. You can see the, can you see that? The 87.95. And then there's an arrow around here someplace. Probably. Where's the arrow? Woohoo! I thought I saw there. There's the arrow. See it? Center screen? Yeah. So, yeah. I'll have to weigh the piston and decide what I want to do here. But for all of you guys thinking about using the 88 slip-ins, 4,000 miles, nothing happened to the skirt, nothing happened to the piston that I can see. Did beat the top. I'm going to measure the OD. You can see where I did quite a bit of grinding there to get this thing to go past the counterweights. This has total seal piston rings on the second groove. The hone marks are still in the cylinder. All the way down, and you can see how far down the rings go. The bottom of these skirts, as small as that slip-in cylinder is, but contrary to the 87 slip-in that gives you the 1641, these alone would give you 1679. And these are 120 thousandths thick at the top. At any rate, I'll keep you posted like I always do. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subbing. TheEZGZ out.